There we go. All right, we are ready to go. So thank you for all joining us this morning for our small business seminar on diversity and inclusion. We're so happy to have Dina Kielman from the ARC of the Central Chesapeake region. I think I got it all right. Presenting this morning. And I think since we have a small enough number, I think we can go ahead and do some brief introductions before we get started so everyone knows who's on the call. So I will go first. I am Kim Wirt. I'm the Director of Operations for the Central Maryland Chamber, and glad to have you here this morning. Casey, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you. So my name is Casey Pellegrini. I do business development for AgTrans and the Stone Store. So we work in bulk aggregates on the commercial construction side, and then we also sell hardscape products for the residential sector.
Thank you. Andy, you're next.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Andy Morsberger, President, General Manager, whatever you're going to call me, Chief Operator of Minuteman Press in Crofton, Canton, and Federal Hill. My family owns all three locations, and we are your one-stop shop for all things printed, from basic printing like business and cards and stationery to signs, banners, all manner of promotional products, and we also do direct mail and fulfillment. And glad to be a new sponsor of the Central Maryland Chamber.
Thank you for joining us. Jure, you're next.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jure Slocum. I am the Business Development Manager and new CRA Officer with Severn Bank. Glad to be on. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, Jure. Adrian, you're next.
Good morning, everybody. This is my fourth meeting, and it's a day at home. Sorry I'm not on the screen. I am with the Maryland Aviation Administration, and I do corporate and community relations for BWI Airport. Glad to be here.
Glad you can join us, Adrian, and no problem with no video. All is well. Chris Barber, you are next.
Good morning, everybody. Chris Barber, Chief Nerd, Cheaper Than a Geek. We help small businesses take the SH out of IT. It's good to see all these familiar faces here. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Alexis.
Good morning, Alexis Lawson with Howard County Office of Workforce Development, Mid-Maryland. I do business services, and I'm always glad to be a part.
Thank you, Alexis. Paula.
Of Pace Consulting. We are a behavioral health counseling and consulting firm located in College Park, Maryland, and definitely interested in this topic, so that's why I'm here.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Paula. Scott Wallace.
Scott Wallace, Anne Arundel Workforce Development Corporation. We're here to help businesses in Anne Arundel County thrive. We work on behalf of the Anne Arundel County government, so we're not going to charge you for it. How about that?
Woohoo! All right. I don't think I missed anybody. So before we get started with the presentation, if you would like to enter your contact information into the chat, we will share that with everybody who's on the call this morning, as well as the slides and a brief survey later today. So feel free to go ahead and add that information. And without further ado, we'll turn that program over to Dina.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Thanks for coming today. This is a workforce inclusion presentation. We are hoping you guys will learn some good stuff, and we got a couple of questions for you that Kim will throw out with a poll, I think in a few slides, and we'll see what we've got going out there and what you guys want to learn. I am with the ARC. Give you, this is, I've got this on my other screen here, so this is like, sorry about that. This is what I was afraid was going to happen here. It's a little tricky. We are, sorry about this. This is like a trigger happy system here. We have been in Anne Arundel County since 1961. We've been at the forefront of providing supports to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. But what happens with that is that we are always looking for opportunities to educate people on inclusion, on equity, on accessibility, in order for us to have a more inclusive and accepting community for everyone. You can see we've partnered with other organizations over the years and have been a force in Annapolis and in advocacy and education for 6 decades. And we have affected lives, thousands and thousands of lives. But what we're here to talk about today, of course, is our workforce. Boy, this thing's trigger happy. We support people in Anne Arundel County and on the Maryland's Eastern Shore. And we do that with our family, children, youth, and family. We have housing in the form of Chesapeake Neighbors, which is an additional corporation we own, a nonprofit corporation. We have family support services, day services, and workforce development services. And of course, that's what we're here to talk about today. This is Greg. He's one of the guys that owns his own vending business, and he is supported by the ARC. Okay, so today's topic. Kim, do you want to throw out that first poll? We had one poll to ask you guys whether or not your company has a diversity and inclusion policy.
What if you don't know? I don't know.
I would say no.
Okay.
Yes. All right. I'm bad at math, but I can see that's pretty much everybody. So 63% no and 38% yes. Okay. So pretty typical, I would say. What is diversity, equity, inclusion in 2020? So I'll tell you what it used to be. Diversity, equity, and inclusion used to be all about quotas, hiring women, hiring people of color, making sure your business had a ramp, making sure for that government contract you hired 10% of some minority or 10% of people with disabilities or something. That's quotas, that's compliance. That is really old thinking, and that's not what we're talking about here today. What we're talking about here today is that if you have an accessible company, if you have an inclusive culture at your company, then this innovation, and it's really important these days to be innovative, as we know since COVID has turned our world upside down, can create a more a culture that moves faster, a company that moves faster, and you can include that employee retention in those statistics as something that is going to be beneficial because people are happier to be with you if your company is more inclusive. And also your ROI is proven to be better if your company has an inclusive culture that is able to accept people from all walks of life with all abilities, and their viewpoints are taken into consideration. You expand your customer base, you expand employee opportunities, you expand recruitment potential. There's just so many things that happen when you are an inclusive corporation. This is, I'm not just saying these things, this is Wall Street saying these things now. In 2019, they came out with a study that looked at Fortune 500 companies that had diversity inclusion strategies. They performed 30% better on profit margins. They had about double the net income, and on average, 28% higher revenues than companies who did not value these strategies. So those are real numbers, and that's why I present to businesses and chambers, because it really means a lot to your bottom line if you can commit to these strategies. This is corporate examples. Starbucks is, of course, one of the world leaders in inclusion. What you're looking at here is a fully accessible Starbucks. I believe this was in DC or the DC area, where everyone knows the American Sign Language, and everyone that hired has to learn it and know it. And a lot of the people actually use it as their main language. What they found is not only did people who needed this service come to that Starbucks, but it's become one of the most profitable Starbucks in the history of Starbucks. It has a family-friendly, wonderful atmosphere, an inclusive atmosphere, and everyone loves these Starbucks. I think there's 3 now in the world where the sign language, American Sign Language, is the predominant language, used in the store. And so they've seen the real bottom line has changed, and communities rally around businesses like this that are being inclusive. You can see from that picture that basically all walks of life there are represented. And it's a very wonderful place to go visit. Another corporate example, I was just at the Maryland Economic Development statewide conference the other day, and Rob Nichols, who's the president of the American Banking Association, spoke quite at length about their DE&I strategies. They have a huge website on it. They train lots of employees in it. They talk about it as a company. They let people self-identify for many different reasons. Disabilities are taken into account, accommodations are taken into account, as well as, all kinds of issues. And you can go on their website and see all their strategies and how they have put that in place. The title and the topic of the MEDA conference this year, you can see to the left there, was inclusivity and resilience. And they used the pandemic sort of as a starting point for that. But really, they got into huge conversation on what DE&I means across the board. And if you go there, and I think Kim's going to send you these slides, there's a link there to the agenda. You can go listen to some of the keynote speakers, and they are amazing, amazing leaders, women, people of color, all across the board. DE&I is a big buzzword, but it's also a true business strategy, and I think that just proves it. And those speakers really are eloquent about the topic and about how it should be #1 in your business strategy this year. Another corporate example is Ernst & Young. Kelly Greer spoke the other day on Anderson Cooper's show on 60 Minutes about how Ernst & Young has spent millions and millions fostering a program that hires people, in this case, with autism. However, Kelly says that they have saved millions and millions because these people are very efficient at the job. So what she talks about is the untapped potential of people. When they have been given an opportunity, they perform well. When they aren't given an opportunity, you don't quite know what they can do. And luckily for Ernst & Young, they realized that if they fostered a sense of community around these particular people and offered them mentors and accessibility measures within the company, they would perform at the very highest level of accounting and the world has seen. I mean, Ernst & Young is #1. And she says very eloquently, and I'll give you the next slide. She says very eloquently in this video with Anderson Cooper that this is not something they take very lightly. This is not something they do because they're nice people. It's something that Ernst & Young has invested in because it makes them money and the ROI is there. So again, I always bring it back to the business case when I'm talking with the chambers and business leaders, because this is really what's important about this story. There's some awesome lessons learned here on the 60 Minutes video with Anderson, and I encourage you guys to watch it later. Ken, there's a second poll that we were going to do. What I wanted to ask you guys is if you currently employ someone with a disability, could you tell me yes or no?
Again, what if we don't know?
I would say no.
But there are people that have hidden disabilities that we don't care about.
I'm
You
going
know what I
to
mean? We don't know, we don't ask them, hey, do you have a disability? But there people do have them, I'm sure. We all do. I'm wearing glasses right now, so that's kind of a disability, not extreme, but you know, so.
answer how you think is, answer what you think. Okay. 63. That's funny. It's the exact same thing. So who was just speaking right there about the glasses?
That was Scott Wallace with a big mouth.
So Scott, no, you exactly proved my point. You just you teased it out of people and they had to think. So that's a trick question. I've asked many different groups, and I won't say where, but I asked a Rotary one time. It was about 60 business owners, and I said, do you guys employ people with disabilities? And 100% of them said no. And I said, well, that's really interesting. It's a trick question because of hidden disabilities and people that don't identify with the disability. That's probably not true. You probably do employ people with disabilities and you aren't aware of that. And you know, anywhere from 14 to 21% of the population has a disability. Anyone at any time could become someone with a disability through aging or through you know, health issues and that kind of thing. So Scott, you're right. Hidden disabilities are there. So what we talk about is creating a more accessible and inclusive society, and inclusive business practices really benefit everyone, even if you don't realize that they are struggling. They are there, and if they have a open and accessible policy to ask for maybe accommodations in the workforce, maybe they need a different kind of chair, maybe they need different lighting. One of the things that I saw the other day was there were a bunch of political talk at the water cooler, and people weren't quite sure how to tell them that they weren't of that certain political party because it was a very shut down company culture. If it had been a more inclusive company culture, maybe those people that felt uncomfortable could have talked about it and not quit their job over it. So, you know, there's lots of different topics that come into play when we talk about inclusive, being inclusive and being conscious of different viewpoints. So we put out a workforce study, this has been a few months ago now. We spent about 9 months studying different businesses and business practices here on the Eastern Shore. And we were trying to help people understand how to be more inclusive and to look at businesses that were, and to see what they said about the practice of being more accessible, inclusive. Was it helping them? Some of the lessons learned is that to make a DEI strategy work, you need to develop strategies for inclusive hiring practices. For example, a lot of people use Indeed or some sort of onboarding software that may or may not work for someone with a disability. Ernst & Young has developed an entire, and you'll see it in that video if you watch it, an entire onboarding or interview process where people do puzzles and use cubes to make these big puzzles because it shows their critical thinking skills. And they've proven that these kids can do accounting and do the work that Ernst & Young needs them to do. But if you had added them into a regular hiring pool and asked them regular interview questions, they would have failed miserably because they are introverted and they don't speak well for themselves on behalf of themselves. So they would have failed a traditional interview process. But with these puzzles and these other strategies, they pull out these young students, and they are realizing they are capable of doing the job. They realize they're very intelligent. They just the words don't come. So if you only use one certain way of getting people to you, to that hiring practice, you're just using a computer, you're just using an Indeed service or something like that, you may be excluding people that you need. The second thing there is to change job descriptions to include telework and flexible hours. Actually, we've learned that during COVID, that people can work from home. So if like here on the Eastern Shore, what this was involving is that one of the things that's such a pain over here is transportation. If you can't drive, you can't get a job over here. Well, what we've learned during COVID is you can work from home for many of these office jobs. You don't need to drive anywhere. And if your hours can be flexible for these jobs, then you're expanding your employee base, your potential base. Another thing we've learned is to match job skills to people you've hired and be flexible. So for example, if you hire somebody to answer the phone and you realize they're not very good with that, but they're very good with filing and organizing and doing those sorts of things, be flexible, move that person before you just say, oh, you didn't meet this job description, we're gonna have to let you go. If they're good at something and you discover it, be flexible and move that talent around and keep that person on board with you, and maybe assign a mentor to them to help them understand, you know, the direction they're going now, and then find somebody else to do that other job. Once you got a good person, you don't let them go. So the next thing there is to hire unproven talent. So we've seen a lot of job descriptions that came about, I guess basically in the 90s, where you had to have a college degree or a master's degree and 15 years of experience to do the job. We know that's not true. Sometimes people can take a job at the ground level and start running, and with a little support, they're the best employee you've had in 6 months. So we want people to start taking chances on some of these people who may have not had the opportunities to go to college. Maybe mom didn't own a business, you know, maybe mom or dad wasn't an attorney and could afford the college opportunity. Maybe they couldn't get to school because they couldn't drive and they lived, you know, in the rural area, but they've been wanting to, you know, work for your company for 10 years. I don't know, but you need to actually speak with these people who have, quote, no experience and see what their potential is, because maybe you are the company that can help them get on that road, and they can be a good employee for you, but it doesn't look like it on their resume. So don't go by that. Sometimes that's not all there is to a person, as we well know. We talk about hiring or using people first language in internal and external communications. And if you email me, I can send you what people first language means. But basically, it's just being respectful of how you speak to people, and there's a certain way you can speak about particularly people with disabilities or things that maybe you don't quite know how to express in the verbal form without being rude. There's people first language that you can use, and everyone will feel more comfortable talking about certain subjects. You want to create accessible onboarding practices. Again, I mean, we talk about this a lot at the ARC. Like if you can't get to us, but you can Zoom in, well, you know, if your job is going to be sitting around, you know, a computer, you don't necessarily need to drive up to Severn 2 hours from where you live and sit with someone in a room. Maybe we could do a Zoom call and talk to you about that job. So you can hire people online, you can call them on the phone, you can drive to them, that kind of thing. There's different ways of thinking other than you must be here at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. And essentially that's what we're trying to explain to people. Share your successes and your innovation. So what we found, and if you go on my Facebook page today, there's a story of a young lady who works at a deli in Denton that has been there for 4 years, and she is amazing. She does have a disability, but what happens when you embrace and share what you're doing in your company, you're being inclusive, you are working with people of different cultures and of different abilities, your community will support that, Your team will support that. You'll find your employees really rally around and mentor that person and help them succeed. Those stories are important because it shares with not only within your company that you care, but it shares with other businesses that these strategies can be successful. So please share, get on social media, tell your stories about what you're doing in your own company and help educate others. And then of course, if you are looking for employees and you're not quite sure where to start, you can always call the ARC or another disability service provider, or there's tons of people out there that can advise on all kinds of diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies. We've seen a lot of people hiring firms that can do this, but there are plenty of nonprofits that can help you as well. These are some of our employers here. We work with Maryland Live, we work with Marriott, we work with Starbucks. There's just pretty much anywhere there's a business, you're gonna find a lot of our employees, and these are all in Anne Arundel County here. So just dozens of employers that we work with. Where do we start? So the number one question I get from companies is, I don't really know what we're doing in this space. You know, I think our poll said about 68% did not have a DEI strategy and not really thought about it. So kind of evaluate where you are today. If you're a bigger company, you can look at your board of directors pictures on the wall and tell me what they look like. Are they all, you know, essentially all elderly white men that have been there in place for 10 years or 20 years or whatever? I hate to say it that way, but seriously, look at your pictures on the wall. Look at your company culture. Does everyone look exactly like the other person? Did you guys start this company 30 years ago and those are the same guys that are in the top spots? You need to really evaluate that and put some other people up there, put some young people up there, put people, you know, put women up there. Like, think about literally what you look like. When if you looked in a mirror, what do you look like? And then think about, is that where you want to be? Is that inclusive? Set goals and start a conversation about it. So once you do this evaluation, you need to speak with your team and say, guys, you know what, going into the future, we're missing out. You know, we're not being inclusive of our community. We're not being inclusive of our customer base. We're not being inclusive of potential employees with talent. Where do we go from here? And maybe come up with that DEI statement that you feel comfortable with sharing with your team, and then work towards some goals. Review your job descriptions and hiring practices. Like we said, are you a bank and you said it's 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. you have to be here in Annapolis downtown, and you know, park and all that stuff? Or did you learn during COVID that nope, you can work from home and we'll set you up with a computer and a printer and a phone, and you're good to go for the bank, and you do your work when you get to it. All these innovations have come about during COVID that have helped many people with mobility issues and transportation issues, and people in rural communities. Now they can dial in. No more Bay Bridge traffic to consider. They'll be there right at 7 a.m. if that's when you need, because they just walk down to their dining room and log in. So just think about, what does your job description say? Does it insist that that person be on site? Does it insist they have a driver's license? Maybe they don't need those things anymore. Remember millennials. I mean, I hear a lot from businesses that I just can't hire young people and they don't want to work for me. Well, millennials value diversity. Millennials want to see that you care about your entire community. They want to see that you have hired people from all walks of life, and you need to be cognizant of that when they walk in for an interview. I remember talking to a bank guy, and he was like, oh, this guy, he was perfect. He graduated from UPenn. I was giving him a good salary. You know, well, he just came from a city. He came out to the country and saw no diversity at all. And he had just spent 4 brilliant years in, a city in Pennsylvania, enjoying all all those different perspectives. He did not want to come to a rural area and see one note culture, and it didn't matter how much money he was paid. He was definitely not interested. So they are losing, a lot of these old time companies are losing this young talent because they want diversity. They value diversity, and they expect you to be inclusive and accessible of people from all walks of life. So we also encourage you to support organizations like ours that are doing this work. We can talk to employees in your place of business. We can talk to your HR departments. We can, if you want to hire someone with a disability, we can help coach you through that. If it's someone that's actually supported by the ARC, our coaches actually, our employment advisors come on to your site and actually work with that person until they're comfortable. And we help them be as independent as possible, but we're always in the background if they need us. So that's just our specific situation, but there are other disability service providers out there that are also doing this for people in Anne Arundel County. And how does the ARC help in general? We do a lot of education. We do a lot of advocacy at the state and federal level. We do a lot of support and workforce development in individual businesses. And one of the things I always bring about when I'm talking about accessibility and what it means to people is this wonderful cartoon that a friend shared with me. And it was a little boy, and there were steps full of snow, and he was in a wheelchair, and he was asking the custodian to please clear the ramp so his wheelchair could get up and he could get in the building. And the custodian was like, well, I need to clear the stairs first. And the little kid looks at him and he's like, if you cleared the ramp, we could all get up faster. So I always leave you guys with that story. That's the education. If you take nothing else away, I want you guys to understand you can be the ramp for your company and be the ramp for your community. And this is just a little bit about the ARC. Spread the word for us. Hire someone new and tell me about it. If you leave this session today and you're like, I'm going to go change my job descriptions, or I'm going to reach into a different community. I'm going to look at someone else I haven't looked. I'm going to give a young person a shot, or an older person maybe that hasn't been in the workforce a while. I'm going to give them a shot. Tell me about it. We'd love to hear those stories. Follow us on social media. I try to educate. I am the social media coordinator for the ARC CCR, and I do try to educate and inform when I can. And of course, if you want to support our work, we have plenty of opportunities for that as well. Our holiday giving campaign is actually coming up, where we're supporting children with disabilities with holiday gifts. So all throughout the year, we are accepting volunteers. We are accepting support from the community. So I always leave with that, just in case that's something you are wondering how you can do. Again, that is my information right there. If you're interested, I'm sure Kim's going to send you this, but if you're interested in our workforce study, this is the link is right there as well, and you can also Google that and it'll pop right up. That is a PDF to our workforce study that we released, like I said, over the summer. All right, that is essentially my presentation. Do you guys have questions? No questions?
Everyone's quiet.
You guys are so quiet. I hope that's a good thing.
Andy posted in the chat he would be interested in talking with you about partnering and sponsoring. So we'll make sure
Awesome.
you get this information as well.
We love to, so we're doing our best to support the community as much as possible, from chambers to nonprofits, anything. So we just love to learn about opportunities and see, what we can do. I mean, there may be in kind things, maybe money donations, volunteering. We'd love to learn about all the opportunities.
Absolutely. I can email you if Kim will share, or you can email me.
Yeah, my information's in the chat. You can email me, text me, call me, whatever is easier for you.
Absolutely.
Dina, Casey had a question in the, well, not really. She would like to learn more about volunteer opportunities. Do you have some specifics you could share about that?
Lovely, lovely COVID, right? So it's limited right now. We are hoping always at our golf tournament post-COVID, we have opportunities. We have shopping opportunities for the kids. You know, lots of times for a holiday fund, people give us money and then we need shoppers. So that's an opportunity right now. We're not allowing anyone to actually go to our homes at the moment because of COVID, but I can certainly put you on our newsletter list. And, you know, once these things shake out, we'll be able to do those things again. We had a couple years ago, we had the Bay Bridge race team, and, you know, all you had to do was show up and be a part of our team. So we do hope to get back to more of those community opportunities as soon as we can.
That sounds awesome. Sorry, Kim, it's Casey. But yeah, so I'll definitely shoot you an email, Dina, because I'd love to get involved. I used to work with Target. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're in Westminster. So they do kind of the same thing as the ARC. So I'd love to help in any way I can.
Awesome. We'd love to have you.
Great, thanks.
Dina, this is Alexis Lawson with Howard County Office of Workforce Development, and I am friends with Barbara Mosier, who's the Director of Marketing for Howard County, the ARC. And I would definitely connect with her because I would love to hear this presentation in Howard County as well. I think there's a lot of information that you shared, especially about the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Conference. I would love to take a look at that link. I'm really excited about the work that Starbucks is doing and Ernest & Young. And I think this information, because quite honestly, I thought diversity inclusion just included like minorities, or, you know, I didn't realize that the term really has been expanded. So if I'm confused, I can only imagine that there is a workforce out there that just is confused. So I would definitely want to connect with you. I want to hear this recording again and connect it with Howard County ARC. And thank you so much for a great presentation.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'm so excited that we are having this conversation because it's amazing. Once you open the door and you realize what DEI can be, these quotas and these things just fall away. It doesn't matter. You're creating a welcoming environment for the best talent, period. And that's what we're looking at.
All right, any other questions?
I'll leave you with one more story that's a business related story.
I think Paula has a question when you're done, Dina.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't see you, Paula. Go ahead.
It's okay. No, I was just saying thank you, and I agree with Alexis that you really, when you asked that question, have you hired anyone with a disability? It made me pause, and I was like, wait, have I? But it's true. There's so many, especially like we're a mental health, practice, and so we know. But just thinking of like the hidden disabilities that people don't speak about, and to really consider that, in your hiring practices. So I just love that you spoke about that, because people don't really think about that. Just like you said, Alexis, people think about Black, Latino, women, gay, you know what I mean? But they don't think about the people with the neurodiversity. So thank you so much for bringing that to the forefront.
Right. And there's so much talent there, right? There's so much potential that we just don't know about. The business story I'll tell you is that I had a friend of mine who's an investment banker, and she had a elderly, wealthy lady that stopped coming in to see her. And she was like, God, I must have made her mad, because, women were always like, oh, we must have hurt her feelings. Like, I didn't say anything about her hair. Like, what happened? So this lady, eventually her son came in and did some paperwork for her, and she's an investment banker. And she's like, so did I make her angry? And the son was like, oh no, she's got a mobility issue now, as she's aging, and you don't have a ramp out there. So she feels uncomfortable coming to your office. So that's just an example of how I may have not have had a disability. Now I do. And you aren't recognizing that if I had just built a ramp, you know, all those people that maybe I'm missing out on would be in my office spending money with me. So that's just a simple example of someone that they may be embarrassed to tell you that something's happened, that maybe they don't hear as well as they used to, or whatever it is. So Ernst & Young is a fantastic company that has an incredible self-identification and accessibility accommodations kind of network, I would say, because there's a lot of people in that company working on this issue where you can just casually, or you can anonymously kind of to your team, but you can tell your HR people anonymously, I have this issue. Can you just, you know, make the lighting different or something like that? And the difference in their company is that it doesn't penalize like a department. Like if you typically in a company, you say, well, I'm going to buy a chair and you've got to charge it to the accounting department. So they're embarrassed to say they need an ergonomic chair. Ernst & Young, all these accommodations are handled from a different pot of money. So the chair just comes to that person and it doesn't penalize the department. So that's just another little tweak in this conversation that makes it just so much more accessible for everyone. You just take away that embarrassment. You take away that feeling that, you know, I don't want to be the one that's talking about it, you know, because there's a way to talk about it that is comfortable.
Excellent. Great story.
Thanks.
All right, well, I don't think there's any more questions. I have a few quick announcements, just some upcoming chamber activities just to put on your calendar and on your radar. So our next small business seminar will be on October 21st, and we're having Anne Arundel County's health officer, Dr. K, not even gonna try to pronounce his last name, talk about business reopenings, and he will be offering a question and answer session at the end of that. So if you're in Anne Arundel County and you've got questions that you want to pose to him about, you know, what's going on and when we can expect certain things, make sure to join us. That'll be at 10 o'clock. On October 13th, we're going to be having our next virtual networking mixer from 3 to 5. It is free for chamber members, and it's sponsored by our very own Andy Morsberger on our call today from Minuteman Press. And then October 19th, we are celebrating finally, after multiple reschedules, our Spirit of Community Awards. We'll be handling that virtually, where we're going to be giving out our awards for our civil servants in Anne Arundel County and surrounding areas. That'll be our educators, our public safety, and military service members of the year. And then the final announcement is October 22nd. We're having a multi-chamber virtual networking event with the other chambers in the area from 11:30 to 1:30, and there is a small fee for that. I think it's $10 for members. So all of this information is on the chamber's website, centralmarylandchamber.org, and you can always shoot me an email if you have any questions. So I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Dina, for your awesome presentation. We have recorded it, and we will post this on our chamber website so that we can share this information because it's so valuable with everybody. And I want to thank you all for joining us.
Kim, shout out to you for the great work you do. Great job, Kim.
Well, thank you so much. And everybody have a fabulous day, and enjoy this beautiful fall weather. It's gorgeous outside.